Charged with 3 counts of forgery and uttering false documents, as well as giving false information to a public officer yesterday, 14th of October 2020, the NDC leader Chimwanga was sentenced to 1 year imprisonment by the magistrate court. This is Salifyanji Bweupe. As usual, I am joined by Chimwanga, Kalala, and welcome to the news report. Welcome, Chimwanga.
It's great to be here as usual.
Right. Anything interesting that you found in the news today?
Pretty much a slow day, but it depends on what you were looking for exactly. But I believe we had a couple of things happening.
Right.
We saw the PEF cancelling their planned rally that was supposed to take place this Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, and we saw the president meeting up with the EIZ just to talk about construction and the delayments when it comes to government projects. As well as like name dropping some buildings and how credible, or maybe some defects that they might have. Yeah.
So he's really lived up to his word when he said he would call the EIZ to actually have a meeting with them and just try to discuss where the challenges, and what challenges have been there. So if you're watching us right now, you're catching us on your Top Star channel 112, as well as our Facebook page that is Live TV. Send your comments and contributions to 0976 599 547, as well as our Facebook page as well. And so, as we probably have already given a rundown of the headlines that we have in the news today, obviously a lot of some people have expressed their sympathies towards the NDC president, Dr. Chimwanga, as well as where on the flip side of it we've seen other people rejoicing over the conviction that has been given as well. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. So we've seen the likes of the DP president, Mr. Kalala.
Right.
Yeah, just showing his sympathy and expressing his sympathy over the conviction of the NDC leader. We've seen as well the currently suspended Lusaka Mayor Mausampa, who actually paid the NDC leader a visit in the Kamwala remand prison there.
Right.
So a lot have come up to air their sympathy over the conviction of Mr. Kambwili. So we've also seen the Socialist Party president, Mr. Fred Membe, who actually had some concerns. So he says that Mr. Kambwili made very serious allegations against the magistrate, that's Mr. David Simusamba, who was presiding over the case. So Mr. Kambwili made some allegations of Mr. Simusamba allegedly soliciting a bribe from him. Yeah. So from Mr. Sinkamba's from Mr. Membe's perspective, I think the magistrate should have been recused from handling the case, because just to ensure that it was handled in an appropriate manner, because there seemed to be some conflict or maybe some other.
But just on that point that you have raised as well, if we take it back to the time that the health minister, Dr. Chilufya, was called in for investigations by the SEC, he still carried out his role as the health minister. And so in this case, it's just investigations that are really just taking place. So I see a trend where if you're being investigated and you have not really been asked to step aside and until the case or whatever investigations are going on are done, then everyone just continues to go about their job as well. But on that point also, I think there are some people that have also complained against the magistrate himself about how he's quite unfair or biased with the sentencings that he'll probably slap onto anyone that has been found wanting as well. So we see a lot of conflicts, and we see people just coming up and complaining. I think it's the same thing that should have happened some time back with Dr. Nevas Mumba, who actually wrote a letter, to the High Court to Judge Mambilema, right? Yeah, to just state, the grievances or his case towards how unfair the magistrate was in his case as well. So anyway, that is not the focus for now, because now we're just looking at the sentence. Do you think it was fair to actually lock up the NDC president for that long, considering the period we are running towards the general elections, and he's been sentenced for a year? So probably by the time he'll be coming out, the elections would have already passed.
All right, so I don't believe it's a matter of whether it was fair or not. I believe whether it was right or wrong, or maybe was he given a fair trial.
Right.
And I think from the complaints that have been made from most stakeholders, I believe they had an issue with the magistrate presiding over that case. Yeah. So actually, the Judicial Complaints Commission actually made a recommendation to the Chief Justice to have the justice, who's this? Of the actual presiding justice to step down.
Right.
Yeah, from actually having a look at that case.
Okay.
So I believe, if in fact that it turns out that in fact the NDC leader actually committed all these offenses, then I believe justice has carried its course. But then I believe he should be accorded a fair trial where he has to prove his points.
Right.
And the magistrate has to be impartial, which a lot of people have said that I think it was all made it up. So some people are saying this, I think it turned into personal rather than just a fact. Anyway, I think I don't even know how to put it.
No, at the end of the day, I do feel that I'm not taking sides, but I do feel that the magistrate, I think, was just playing his part and giving what he thought was befitting to the particular case as well. And aside from that, as well, I think there are certain cases that are rather very complex, and it's not easy to just move them from one magistrate or one judge to another. It has to go through a series of trying to find out who or would be able to take that up. But I think in this case, even if he wasn't really practicing or he wasn't actually in the position of that being the magistrate at that point. So I'm sorry, I'm really, but he was called in to finish the case because he's the one that actually started with it, so he understood it better than anybody else. So that could be one of the excuses that could be given to say, okay, since it started with him, then he's better off finishing it as well. And probably there could have been other circumstances surrounding the whole situation that could have being the very reason why he could not like preside over the case, but since he was, he's healthy, he's okay, he's still able to pass judgment. I think that's why he was still called on to carry on with the case. So.
Alright, yes, so anyway, we are not the experts on this, but the UPND Secretary General Stephen Katuka says while the party respects the decision of the court, in an ideal scenario, the presiding magistrate should have recused himself, as it is a well-known fact that Magistrate Simusamba had issues with Mr. Kambwili and should not have continued presiding over the case. Yes, so that's one opinion now coming from the Secretary General, the UPND Secretary General, of just saying that Mr. Simusamba should have recused himself from the case. So the NDC actually had a press briefing this morning. So the UPND president was there as well. So he actually said this shouldn't even be, this is not a case of criminality or the like. It's just about having the fundamental rights. Mr. Kambwili having his fundamental rights infringed on him because he should have been given a fair trial. Yeah, so I think we have.
So before we go to clip, so the complaint here is that Dr. Kambwili's case was not really, it was not fair. He was not given an opportunity to actually explain himself or exculpate himself. So probably the time frame that was given to actually go further with the case could have not really been enough. The other day we're talking about how the UPND leader is always so complacent about certain cases. How different is this one from all those complaints that he would do? Anyway, you come and answer that after this clip.
CK's situation, I said it to the family inside, in strengthening the family, must never be viewed as a case of criminality. It truly shouldn't be. It should rightly be viewed as a case of taking away a citizen's rights, liberties and freedoms. He doesn't belong where he spent a night in. He belongs to this home. He belongs here. He's there because we have an autocratic regime. We have a brutal regime. And we must acknowledge that. We have a regime taking away children's right to education. A regime taking away employment to the youth. The very regime that promised more jobs is taking away even the little jobs that our people have. Taking away business opportunities from our mothers in the markets. You just have to see the trouble, the violence in the bus stops. Okay.
So that was the UPND president, Hakainde Hichilema, and it's a good thing that I know the alliance is still trying to stay strong regardless of what is going around at the moment, where we have the NDC president imprisoned for around a year.
Yes, so the NARA president as well, Stephen Nyirenda, has said the conviction of Mr. Kambwili is too harsh and will negatively affect Zambian politics, which I think is a fact as well. So we have a clip from Mr. Nyirenda.
It is sad today to see that our friend in the opposition sector has been taken to prison for 2 years. That is very, very sad. A crime is a crime, but let's look at the gravity of it. There are people who are committing crimes, who are in the government today. They are left scot-free. Those crimes in the corruption sector, these people have made lots of damage to our economy, lots of damage to our people. People are dying and so on. But this crime that has been committed by our comrade, CK, I do not think it's a crime that has literally disadvantaged our economy. It has not disadvantaged any individual. If at all, perhaps it was going to disadvantage he himself in that company. We are not enemies of the government. We are the people who want the strength to strengthen our economy. Please, let's unite to make sure that we help our friend, if possible, that he can be released from that.
Meanwhile, the Economic and Equity Party EEP President Salifyanji says the conviction of NDC leader Chimwanga is timely because he abused his powers when he served in government. I do believe he was one of the key witnesses during the case as well. And so Mr. Tali says the forgery case involving Mr. Kambwili has nothing to do with politics or political persecution, and that he has no regrets for filing the complaints against Mr. Kambwili. So here is the EEP president.
Do you regret, now that Kambwili is behind bars?
How can I regret? This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. I wanted Kambwili to pay for what he did. How can I regret? How can I regret?
Right. The summation of that, probably from the EE president, is to say justice has been served. But is that the right way to actually approach, this case?
I think there are a lot of ways to look at this case. I think it just depends on which side you follow.
Right.
Are you opposition or are you pro-government? But I believe this is a legal issue as well. If Mr. Kambwili did something wrong and it has been proved beyond reasonable doubt, and he actually got presided over by an impartial magistrate,
Right.
I believe it was the right thing for him to be incarcerated. Yeah, so I believe it just depends on how you choose to look at things. I wouldn't say any particular.
Right.
But it's quite unfortunate that he has to be found in these situations.
Right.
Looking at also his health problems as well.
Yeah.
He's been out and in and out of the hospitals and the like. So I believe it's quite unfortunate for Mr. Kambwili.
Right. And now, considering the fact that he has been, convicted, when it comes to the alliance, what happens in this case? Because obviously the Constitution has, its own, way of stating, that a person will obviously be disqualified on a basis that the candidate for election, is serving a sentence or an imprisonment. What do you think that means for NDC?
I believe this will pose a great challenge, because just looking at the political mileage, or maybe just the traction that Mr. Kambwili has. So I believe NDC will lose out very big. The alliance as well, this will be a great loss to the alliance. But anyway, the NDC has maintained that their leader is innocent, so they'll be appealing this ruling by the magistrates. So I think we're more likely to see Mr. Kambwili out sooner than later. So I believe it's still a long way to go. There are a lot of courts where he can appeal. We can still appeal to the High Court, the Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeal. So it's still a long way to go.
Sure.
It's too early to actually determine what will happen to NDC and Mr. Kambwili himself.
Yeah, and I like the fact that the mayor was also encouraging Mr. Kambwili, that with time, I think everything will settle down and all will be well as well. I think in as much as you'd be found guilty of a particular case, sometimes just words of encouragement would actually take you a long way to knowing that there's actually hope out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I totally agree with you on that. It was quite good to see the mayor actually go and offer solidarity to Mr. Kambwili during this hard time. But as many have said, many members of the party, the vice president of the party has said, Mr. Kambwili is a very strong person and he will endure this and he will take it like a champion.
Right.
So it's great to see that all these people are still there, and I believe other friends and colleagues should actually offer their solidarity, comfort the family and the like. I believe we still have a long way to go. I think it's not the end all. Just that judgment isn't the end all. He still has. I think if he feels like he wasn't given a fair trial, I think he still has a way to redeem himself.
Right. And someone mentioned something very interesting about political leaders, especially those that will form their own parties. They said, I would give an example of, the main thing that has been, buzzing around, and that's to do with privatization. So if probably one had a hand to play in privatization, just because they leave their ruling government does not make them, it does not clear or clean their slate, they still remain guilty of any, wrongdoing that they may have done in their regime that was, ruling at that particular time. Do you have any thoughts on that one? Do you think, people actually, can redeem themselves when they form, another party? Do you think they can give a better leadership to the people because of what they've probably had to learn from the previous party, or maybe they learn through their mistakes? Or
I believe it goes to the individual and just how willing they are to serve the people. As we all know, politics is all about service to the people.
Right.
So I think it depends on the person and how willing and just how determined they are with the actual mandate of trying to serve the people. So in as much as they have, these complaints of recycled politicians and needing new ideas and new faces and just like new minds to handle politics and other affairs in the country, I believe some people still have a lot to offer. Yeah, so I think it just goes by the individual. I think this is something that you can't judge collectively. So I think you just have to look at a certain individual and look at their past political experience. What did they do when they were in government? What were they like? What did they speak about the opposition and the like? So it's pretty much just going over the particular individual's political records and seeing like what kind of person they are. I believe most of these things are in public domain. I think we have a lot of issues. If you just like Google a certain individual, just add corruption, the Google results, you get a lot of results. And then you can just read up on the particular individual. But I believe it isn't something that you can actually judge collectively. So it just depends on the people.
But most of the time, people will judge you based on your past, even when you have something better to give, or that I may have done something wrong. You just need a chance to like redeem yourself. But people can never, it's very rare that they will actually try to give you a chance to redeem yourself and prove that you are a worthy leader as well. And
but just on that, I believe people can redeem themselves. I think as we've seen the current Lusaka mayor and how he seems to be in everybody's good books. He was suspended from the PF, actually expelled. He joined UPND for a bit. He's back in the PF now. For the most part now, he looks quite independent, so to say. I think he's functional even away from the party. So I believe people can still redeem.
Maybe he's surrounding himself with the right people. Sometimes I feel, bad company corrupts good morals. So sometimes you may
he's
have
just been interacting with the general public. So I believe that's a good company you're referring to.
No. I'm referring to the past, where now we're talking about him doing good, redeeming himself, and people obviously forgetting about what may have happened in his past as well. So
I think people can still redeem themselves regardless of what they're.
You just need to move closer to the people to just show them.
You're there for the people, so definitely you have to get close to the people and understand their struggles and see what you can do for them. So
and that's one perfect example of communication really being playing a very vital role in trying to build bridges or mend anything that is broken, because you're closer to the person and now they'll be able to understand you, and you'll be able to understand them as well. And so we would like to take our break right now, and we'll come back with more after this.
bwanji tati.
Bwino masenza bwanji mama.
Chungende sako na iwe. Pali pako ma 20 apolo ma 5 kwa jari.
Mama ko ino sachinjira kumuzonda
Chinjira kwa inyo songa chinjira kwa kubantu abale ndio top kwa na 5 hours pamene pano leyo.
Kamba nayo.
That is why you need to get an e-token, sir. It is faster and easier.
To what? The e-tolling card Balela Ndapo is a National Road Fund agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Dalama and you'll be able to use it per token Monga Panusu. To avoid the inconveniences so where you have to start looking for a 20 kwa chocolate cherusha bantu.
Introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back. You're watching News Report with me, Salifyanji Bweupe, and Chimwanga Kalala. And so a big event was supposed to happen. I believe it was towards, COVID, raising awareness of the COVID-19. And it was supposed to have some big artists from South Africa, such as Master KG and what's your name again? Mafiki Zolo. And a few supporting artists from Zambia as well. Unfortunately, the PF has cancelled its scheduled Ndola mobilization rally that was built for Musa Kasonga Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, so I think one thing about this whole story for me is like we haven't even yet determined whether this was supposed to be a COVID sensitization event or maybe it was a mobilization rally for the PF.
It wasn't clear.
Yeah, so it's quite, I think, just a thin line. We don't know which one it was. Yeah, so, but it has been cancelled. Yeah, so the PF National Mobilization Chairman, Richard Musukwa, says the decision follows various concerns raised by interest groups and some stakeholders. Yeah, so a lot of people have been calling for the show to be cancelled. So we had also the National Arts Council yesterday releasing a statement saying that they hadn't been notified about this particular event.
Right.
And they also stated that for any international artist to perform, they have to be cleared 3 months prior to the performance. And then they had to meet some other requirements as well, such as the leaving of 20% of the performance fees and remitting them to the ZRA as withholding tax.
Right.
Yeah, so I believe it just happened all of a sudden. It's like a 1 week's notice to the public and the relevant authorities as well. So I think this was just haphazardly planned. I don't believe much thought was put into this.
So when the planning was happening, was it going to be a case of where we have people abusing, their authority and, avoiding using the proper channels to actually, bring in artists as well? Because it's different when you're going to have, your local artists performing, within the country. But if you're going to bring in people that have to obviously go through clearance at the airports also, especially that we are still having a lot of cases, COVID related to COVID-19. So do you think it is abuse? It's an abuse of authority, and why is it that this house stands divided? Because there's supposed to be, some correspondences happening between various ministries. Why isn't that being done? If it was a PF mobilization, a rally that was supposed to actually take place, you'd think everyone knows to say this is going to happen, and someone can't just wake up and say, oh, we're having these people coming in, on this particular date. And like you've said, a week isn't really a long time to actually, get people, to be ready. And the funny thing is that even those people that side were actually anticipating, and they were anxious, to obviously come into the country and perform as well. I'm meant to believe there was also a deposit that was, meant towards that.
I don't know exactly on the financial end, but I believe there's one question that needs to be answered as well, why are we spending so much money? Obviously, those guys aren't coming here to get paid peanuts, obviously. So they have some contracts there with big money, and then why are we spending all this money? Is it really necessary to have them? Don't we have the local artists here already? Or maybe until enough, why do you have to procure talent from South Africa?
And is COVID-19 in South Africa done for them to come here to sensitize on COVID-19?
Exactly. So all those concerns, a lot of
Right.
concerns have been raised in regards to this.
Yeah.
So we actually had some people who launched campaigns on Twitter, actually tweeting these artists to not come through because of various concerns, as the PF National Mobilization Chairman, Mr. Richard Musuku, has said. So I
Right.
think there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed with this particular story. It's just I think it just came out of nowhere. And like
I mean,
nobody was
Samsuka has
expecting
said or directed the Copper Belt Mobilization Chairman, Paul Mando Sambo, to postpone the rally in order to give the party room to address, various issues raised. So that should have been done, before the invitation was actually even sent out.
Exactly, because obviously there needs to be communication
Right.
between the National Mobilization Chairman and the Copper Belt, the Provincial Mobilization Chairman. So I think, I don't know, maybe a lapse in the party in terms of communication. Maybe it was supposed to be a Copper Belt thing alone. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. If it's a party, then everyone in the party has to know, because my understanding is that if you are from a particular party, that's as good as a family. So within a family, there's going to be communication that's going to be done as well. Even the right people, even if it's not everyone, but the people on top, I think, needed to know what is going on so that they make sure everything, is done the right way as well. So I do not know how things are happening in the party. I'm really, really concerned because it's not the first time that we're having something, some miscommunication happening where one ministry says this, another one says that as well. And I do certainly hope that this will be worked on as well. Yeah.
Right, yeah, so Mr. Musuku has apologized for the inconvenience caused by this cancelling, but has stressed that the mobilization rally will be held at the earliest convenient time. Yeah, so it's been cancelled. No Mafikizoli or Master KG,
Jerusalem
Challenger this Saturday for the people of Ndola. I bet a lot of people were actually looking forward to this.
And people were actually going to travel. The way I know Zambians.
It's free, obviously. So
yeah.
Why shouldn't you? Yeah, but anyway.
Exactly, and also for me, I think the other concern now, especially that it's free and it's only going to one town, is the issue that we have, I think, with RTS, which obviously, especially around this time and festive period, people get too hyper, and for me, my concern is people might be drunk, as they are driving, and would even cause a lot of accidents as well. So I do hope all these small nitty-gritty things will actually be put into consideration when finally there's a go-ahead to actually bring these people to actually perform. And so no formal communication has been made so far by the organizers, saying the National Arts Council learned about the foreign artists invited through social media adverts. What a way to actually know, about what's, the organization that you handle, is going to receive more people to perform, and yet you are, unaware of what's really happening in your ministry or your organization as well. It's very unfortunate. I think these are things that make people seem as if they are being stubborn or trying to be independent, and just have their own, expressions towards a certain issue, and not work with whoever is organizing that event because there's no clear communication.
Yeah, so I think one more thing is on the artist end, didn't they carry out any due diligence to actually find out what this particular event was about, and just to find out if it actually aligned with their brand and just like their personal bearings? I think artists should be careful as well.
We do know that during the COVID-19, a lot of artists were not making money. If this is an opportunity that came in and they're like, oh, probably we might redeem ourselves and might make a bit of some, profit to what we, already have. I think that's why they jumped onto the carriage to say it's a good thing. So maybe they did not really think 3 times about it, because they were excited about what the outcome was going to be, and leaving the country to go into another country to just have a breath of air. Again, maybe that's really the angle they were looking at it from. So.
All right. So, and just in another story concerning the PF and rallies, we have the Minister of Health, that is Dr. Chilufya, who's currently in Chilubi for the campaigns. So there'll be some by-elections there for the council chairperson. So the Minister of Health is currently there, and there's a video circulating of him actually in the field going all out, just trying to interact with the people. Maybe we can have a look at the video now.
Now you're making me laugh. So that is the health minister, Dr. Chilufya, when he was, or he's still in Chilubi, right? Yeah. In Chilubi Island, and probably he was, trying to campaign here and there with the residents of Chilubi Island as well. First of all,
where's the mask?
Where's the mask, doctor? Second of all, where is the 1 meter? Apart. I think when there was no social distancing there, and considering the fact that we still have, some cases that are really going around. And the other day, I did see in the news that there were some BID cases, that came in as well, and that's just to show that COVID has not gone anywhere. It's still there, but people have sort of like relaxed, and they feel like everything is okay. But how do you convince people like that when you don't have a mask yourself, and the people that you have with you are not wearing masks as well, unless there's no COVID?
I wouldn't know that, but I believe the minister should have like some people around to advise him. I think even if this did happen, but I think he should have some people to actually advise him that no boss here, not taking boss there. So like, look at the position you hold and what you're usually saying in your briefs when it comes to COVID-19, and here's what you're doing. Those people were standing in close proximity. There were even some young people there. So
how often would Mwinemushi listen to Kasaka?
Yeah, but that's beside the fact. Like, he should have, in the first place, this shouldn't even be happening. Yeah, but I believe he should have some people as well, just to like say, all right, this doesn't sit well with the job you do and what you're tasked to do. So I think.
Okay, if someone has a camera and they're taking a video of what we're doing here.
Yeah, and it seems like people who actually are in support are the ones who took this video and posted it. So I think it's kind of reckless from the minister to actually go out there and just interact with these people without observing the COVID-19 guidelines that he actually preaches and professes to like everyone to follow. And then it's also reckless and just careless for the people to post the video as well. So I believe more should be done about that.
What, they're trying to show that they're working. How else would they show that they're working? You want them to put up an act? That was as real as it could get. But I think we just need to do things, better for the benefit of the people of Zambia, families, and everyone that has been affected by the COVID-19. So maybe you could just run us down through the COVID-19 cases so far.
All right, so currently the cumulative cases are at 15,000 are like 15,616, and the total recoveries are 14,850. And then for the deaths, we have like deaths that have been explicitly said to be caused by COVID-19 at 114, and then COVID-19 associated deaths at 213. So that's from the Zambia National Public Health Institute with those statistics.
And the active cases at 421.
Yeah, so I think that even though the number of active cases might be low at the moment, I believe we still need to take precaution.
And one case is one too many.
Exactly.
Yeah. So on that particular note, we have come to tonight's episode of a news report. But before we go, we'll run through the stories that made headlines. Kambwili sentenced to 12 months imprisonment.
PF cancels Ndola mobilization rally.
So on behalf of the entire production crew, this has been Salifyanji, Bweupe and Chimwanga Kalala saying good night, God bless, and keep watching Live TV.